Hey y'all, Dinus here. I was scrolling around for some election predictions and I ran across this propaganda piece from the New York Times. But I repeat myself. It's from Allan Lichtman. He predicted, these last few elections successfully. And he's got these 13 keys to success. And I'm like, oh, okay. And as I watched it, I became more and more enraged at how dumb he was, or I'm just being lied to. And so I'm just reminded of how when you see these things, they're not there to inform you, they're there to instruct you. You are to follow their instructions, and if you disobey, you will be punished. So I want to kind of give you an eye-opening truth of what's actually going on. You might see it as a bias from the other side, but you need to hear the other side, because when you see this garbage in the mainstream media, you need to balance it out with some medicine. So I'm going to let Allan Lichtman introduce himself, and we'll kind of go over this bit by bit, all right? Here we go.
To make his presidential predictions, Allan's model ignores the polls and the pundits.
It hinges on 13 keys that I developed in 1981 with my geophysicist friend Vladimir Kailis Borak. It's based on 120 years of presidential election outcomes before then.
Told you, he's a nerd. Allan's model was one of the few that called it for Trump in 2016.
Donald Trump is going to win.
And in 2020, Allan got it right again.
Trump would lose the White House.
The race was tight, but the keys were right.
So let's get to how these keys actually work.
They are 13 big picture, true, false questions.
All right, let's get to the keys.
That tap into the...
Okay, let's go over these keys here, because I think these keys are actually important. I think these keys actually matter. I agree with these keys. If for anyone who's actually paying attention, not just like, I like the way his hair looks. I like the way, he talks. I like abortion. It's none of those superficial, stupid things. If you actually care, these keys are important. So let's go over these here. And the way he goes over these, it just, I don't know. I think they're paying him. He must be being paid. There's no way he actually believes this. So I'll let him go through these.
The strength and performance of the White House party. And only 2 keys have anything to do with the candidates.
But Allan, 2024 is an unprecedented election year. Can your 13 keys really call it right?
The keys absolutely will work. They are the constant northern star of political prediction.
As long as we're actually being truthful about them, that is. That's the way they work, if you're being honest about them.
All right, time to run these keys and find out who will be the next president of the United States, according to Allan.
But first, let me change into something a little more comfortable.
And this whole skit of him working out is absolutely ridiculous. I know it's trying to make him seem normal, but I wish they would have just got on with it.
Number 1. The White House party gained House seats between midterm elections.
The Democrats did better than expected in 2022, but they still lost House seats, so the key is false.
Remember, a false key is good for Trump.
This is true. This is one of the only things he says in this entire video that's actually true.
Number 2, the incumbency key. The sitting president is running for re-election.
Biden withdrew from the race, costing the Democrats this key. It is false.
Wait, you're saying it would have helped the Democrats if Biden stayed in?
If Biden stayed in, they would have salvaged this one key. That's all.
Okay. Moving on for...
Let's not move on for a second. This is important because it's complicated. On the one hand, if Biden had all his crackers, yes, it would have actually helped them because he was actually doing well against Trump. But he doesn't have his crackers, and they've been lying about it for years now. That's why it hurts them. So they're giving this to Trump is still good, not just because it's good for Trump, but because it's honest. But they're kind of obscuring what's actually happening here.
Now, number 3, the White House party avoided a primary contest.
The Democrats finally got smart and united overwhelmingly behind Vice President Harris. So the key is true.
A true key.
Okay, again, they're obscuring what's actually going on here. This is where I started getting enraged. Yes, it was smart of them to get rid of Joe Biden because if they put him in office, to run against him again, he was like, "Oh, what? Here's what's going on here," and his whispers and nonsense. So yes, it's kind of good that they got rid of Biden, but at the same time, there was no primary process. There was no contest. They just put her in, and no one voted on it. That's terrible. The elites just put her in. Worse than what they did to Bernie, where they overturned him with their super delegates and put Hillary in instead. So this is, if we're being fair, this should be neutral rather than true or false, is where I would really put this. I definitely would have put it in Kamala's favor because they've been trying to super hype her up for the last month, and it's been going terribly for her. So if he was being honest, this should be neutral. If it's, in my opinion, it should be against her. It should be in favor of Trump because she's easily defeated because she's an idiot. But let's move on.
That moves Harris off the starting block. Number 4, there's no third-party challenger.
RFK Jr. has dropped out of the race, and no other third-party candidate is anywhere close to the 10% polling threshold needed to turn this key. It's true.
4 keys in, and it's next.
Hang on. So normally this would apply to a candidate like Ross Perot. When there's a third-party candidate, it takes away from the incumbent or usually whoever that person's policies lean towards, it takes away from that other candidate's stuff. Like I said, Ross Perot against H.W. Bush in the 90s, right? But we have RFK. He mentioned RFK. And who did RFK endorse? RFK is endorsing Trump. So let's be honest, not everyone that's voting for RFK is going to vote for Trump. But I can't remember the last time we had a third-party candidate that then also endorsed the main party guy. And not just, like, hey, support this guy. Like, no, goes to his rally, shakes his hand. There's fireworks going everywhere. He's going to be part of his cabinet, for crying out loud. To give this to Kamala Harris, I don't know, man.
And neck. Let's keep going. Number 5, the short-term economy is strong.
Look, despite all the loose talk about a so-called vibe session, the economy is not in recession.
Are you high? What? What? I'm dumbfounded. Are you serious? The short-term economy is not spiraling into absolute decay? I want to yell at the top of my lungs at this guy and just throttle him like Homer does to Bart. Everything has doubled in price. Nothing is affordable. Everything sucks. Look around you.
So this key is true.
Number 6, long-term economic growth during this presidential term has been at least as good as the last 2 terms.
Growth during the Biden term is far ahead of growth during the previous 2 terms, so this key is clearly true.
This is demonstrably false. They have lied about recession for years. They lied so hard, they changed the definition of recession. I covered this in another video of mine, but basically they changed it from 2 terms of decline in GDP consecutively to a significant decline in GDP. So if we look at this article from Epoch Times, it says, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, a government body, cumulative inflation since 2019 has totaled nearly 25%. So overall inflation has gone up 25%. And because they're understating the inflation, we have been in a recession since 2022. We have been in recession for 2 years because of inflation. Do I need to? It's according to their own data, we're in a recession. It doesn't take a genius to figure this out. So this is not, they're just lying. This is why I say this is a propaganda piece. They're not trying to inform you. They're trying to instruct you of what to think. It's just, you just to turn your thinking cap on for 2 seconds. You just think, wait, everything's more expensive. Why are they saying we're doing great? Because you're not rich. You're a common folk like you and like me and everybody else. You're a normie. And that's fine. Normal people rule this country. We're a republic after all. But I just, it's astounding to me. Okay? So these things that they've been given to Kamala, I think this is 4 of them so far. 4 in total that they've given to Kamala that they shouldn't have out of the 13.
Number 7. The White House has made major changes to
Yeah, they sure have made major changes.
national policy.
Rejoining the Paris Accords on climate change.
Disaster.
The CHIPS bill, the
In theory, the CHIPS bill should be good, but I'll show you why it's not.
infrastructure bill, the
Also a disaster.
Inflation Reduction and Climate Change
Didn't reduce inflation, as we've seen. Oopsie. Put that back.
bill. Clearly, the key is true.
Number
Clearly the key is true, he says. Clearly. It's obvious. Why don't you see this? It should be, everyone should see it. Oh, what's that? Biden claimed CHIPS Act would create million construction jobs. The actual number is around 6,000. Like I said, in theory, this should be a good thing. We need to have chip manufacturers here in America. Intel needs to be here in America. We don't need everyone over in Taiwan with TSMC, NVIDIA. We need them over here so we don't have to worry about pandemic situations where everything goes into chaos and cars become absolute like a nightmare to buy. We don't need that happening again. We need everything over here. I'm really wound up and I want to yell. I'm just going to move on because I hate being lied to. I hate being gaslit.
8. There is no sustained social unrest during the term.
There have been sporadic protests, but nothing approaching the massive, sustained social unrest needed to turn this key. So it's true.
But schools are just going back to session. With new protests, couldn't this key flip?
Yes, there are a lot of protesters upset with Biden's policies in the Middle East. But now with Harris, not Biden, front and center, that has dampened social unrest.
Number 9.
Oh, it's dampened social unrest, huh? Oh, wait, what's that? We have a video from Twitter here. What was this? This was in May here. I love how he's pretending that Kamala isn't in charge as vice president, because we all know Joe Biden wasn't in charge during this. We can scroll down. Oh, look, all these monuments defaced. I think one of them was Abraham Lincoln statue. I saw one of those. Look at all this stuff. I could go on and on and on and on and on. Death to America in Minneapolis. But no, we don't have any social unrest. Everything is just peachy. So look, they have her all the way. I don't know. I can't really point here. They have her all the way around here, and expect you to believe all this mess.
White House is untainted by scandal.
Oh, my favorite key, the scandal key. And Republicans have been trying for years to pin a scandal on President Biden and come up empty. So the key is true.
But come on, Allan. Biden's horrific debate performance, questions about his age, Hunter Biden, doesn't any of that count?
No, there has to be at least some bipartisan recognition of actual corruption that implicates the president himself and not a family member. So the key remains true.
Scandal-free, huh? Scandal-free. And, because, the Democrats are just going to agree to it like they did in the 90s where Bill Clinton was having fun with Monica Lewinsky in the White House, because they're honest. Democrats being honest. Because, in Watergate, everyone's just working together. How dare we do this to America? I'm going to resign out of shame. No, that's not going to happen. We have the China scandal. We have the Ukraine scandal with Hunter Biden and the gas companies. We have the drugs in the White House scandal. And don't forget the biggest scandal of all, Joe Biden has dementia. He's got dementia. Everyone knows it. It's obvious. The laptop scandal. There's so many flippin' scandals. I've lost count. I actually had to relook it up because I actually forgot how horrible it all was. And yet, we're just going to give this to Kamala because, the Democrats don't agree. And if the Democrats don't agree, that is...
So, 2 false and 7 true so far. Looking pretty good for the Democrats. We have 4 keys left, all of which would have to be false for Trump to have a path. Number 10. The incumbent party candidate is charismatic.
This is a very high threshold key. You have to be a once-in-a-generational, broadly inspirational candidate. Harris has not met that standard, so this key is false.
Thank God. The one thing I've heard in the last, 5 minutes here that's actually true.
Number 11. The challenger is uncharismatic.
Some people
Catch that. She said uncharismatic.
think Donald Trump is a god, but he only appeals to a narrow base, so that key is true.
But wait.
Pause. He said he only appeals to a narrow base. Don't forget the fact that Donald Trump is now appealing to over a quarter of black men, which hasn't happened since 1960. That's what, 60 years? 60 years. He's got the young vote. He's got the rural vote. He's got pretty much every vote except for educated women who the only thing that they want is abortion. That is their one issue. That's the only thing they care about is killing their babies. Everyone else is tired of the wars. They're tired of the economy. They're tired of everything else, and they're voting for Trump.
That means...
The Democrats will hold on to the White House, and Kamala Harris will be the next president of the United States.
But wait a sec, Allan. We still have 2 keys left. The foreign policy keys?
You're right. Foreign policy is tricky, and these keys could flip. The Biden administration is deeply invested in the war in Gaza, which is a humanitarian disaster with no end in sight. But even if both foreign policy keys flipped false, that would mean that there were only 5 negative keys, which would not be enough for Donald Trump to regain the White House.
So I guess that means...
All right, we're going to, let me just go back to this part here. So you see all this stuff that's green? Yeah, so the primary contest, which is absolute bullshit, because Kamala Harris didn't even get a vote. Did anyone vote for Kamala Harris? No. She lost in the presidential race in 2020 in the very first state, and she got to be vice president because she's a woman and she's a person of color, which I hate that term. It sounds like colored person, which is just as bad. Then we have the third party candidate. That was BS. The economy is definitely BS. The policies are horrible. There's social unrest. There's tons of scandals. And Donald Trump is the most charismatic man on the whole goddamn earth. He has everyone in the palm of his hand, including all the dictators like Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un, and Putin. They all have to play his game. So, all of these are in favor of Donald Trump to either a great extent or at least a little bit. So if he actually followed his own model, he would tell you the truth that Donald Trump is going to win if everything was actually fair, unlike 2020. But we all know how that went. So I just wanted to see if you actually saw this video and you're just about as enraged as I have and you couldn't put it into words, maybe this video will help you out. If y'all like this, give me a thumbs up, comment below. Have a good night, y'all.